Part 3 of Economic Survey 2015-16 will start with monetary and financial sector. There were several revisions in the rates during the year. So, what is finally the rate at present and the ratios at present? So, the repo rate 6.75%, reverse repo rate 5.75%, and MSF or marginal standing facility or the bank rate, both are same. This is 7.75%. Now, one information here is that earlier there was no linkage between MSF and bank rate, but with effect from February 13, 2012, bank rate is equal to MSF or marginal standing facility. Now, as far as the ratios are concerned, CRR is at 4% for long, and same is true for SLR. SLR is 21.5%, and these two have not changed for a long time. Now, as far as some developments during this year, one development was, you understand, the financial inclusion word. There are a lot of initiatives in the past few years about financial inclusion, and one of the initiative announced during this year, it was Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. So all this you may have read in the newspapers, and this was announced in the budget last year 2015-16, and it was launched finally in April, or to be more specific, April 8, 2015, and this is for refinancing to, what is the purpose of this Mudra Yojana? It is for refinancing the MFIs or microfinance institutions. Now, there are different words used in this scheme. One is called Shishu, and Shishu is for loans up to rupees 50,000. Then another is called Kishore. It is for loans from rupees 50,000 to rupees 5 lakh. And the third, that is biggest one, is called Tarun, and here it is for loans from rupees 5 lakh to rupees 10 lakh. So these three words are important that have been used here. It is for refinancing of the MFIs. It was launched on April 8, 2015. Now, as far as the success of this scheme as reported in the economic survey, during this year 2015-16, 2.19 crore borrowers were covered. That is a very big number. Now, 1.62 out of them were women. So, it is working for women empowerment also. 77.12 lakh were new entrepreneurs, new businesses. So it is promoting new entrepreneurs, and 1.10 crore belong to SC, ST, OBC classes. So it is also working towards social empowerment, right? Social empowerment. So these are the words that can be used in the questions that Mudra Yojana is for. So one thing is financial inclusion. It is for refinancing. But what are the groups that are being targeted here? So women are being targeted, new entrepreneurs are being targeted, and obviously the socially backward classes are being targeted. So that is one big move as far as the government is concerned in the direction of financial inclusion. Now, then there is another issue, reforms in the financial sector. So now as far as reforms are concerned, there is one big reform introduced this year, that was on 28th September 2015. And this reform is that FMC, Forward Markets Commission, that was the regulator of commodities market, right? It was the regulator of commodities market. It has been merged into SEBI. So now, earlier we had two regulators. For stock markets it was SEBI, and for commodities market it was FMC. But now there will be single regulator, SEBI, and SEBI will regulate both the stock market as well as the commodities market. Now another discussion in the economic survey, though there is nothing very objective in that, but as this discussion is there, so that is about FSDC. So you should know what is FSDC. So full form of FSDC is Financial Stability and Development Council. And this was set up in December 2010. It is chaired by Union Finance Minister, and its members are the financial regulators of the country. For example, RBI is there, SEBI, PFRDA, Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, IRDA, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority. So these are the members of FSDC, and Union Finance Minister chairs the FSDC. Now, as far as the functions are concerned, it is responsible for maintaining macro prudential supervision of the economy. Now, what is this macro prudential supervision? You know, the financial sector has gradually become very complex. Though we have different regulators for different parts of the financial system like RBI, SEBI, PFRDA and IRDA. But there are so many regulatory issues where only one regulator may not take the decision, and there is a lot of overlapping also in the financial market. So sometimes we need coordination between the regulators. So how to coordinate the activities? For that they need some platform to discuss, debate and take decisions. So that is why this FSDC was constituted in 2010, and now as and when required the meetings are held and the decisions are taken under the chairmanship of the Union Finance Minister. Now another issue during the year was the enlargement of the pension sector and the insurance sector. You know, when we talk about providing help and support to the poor, it is very unfortunate that after so many years of independence, most of the people in India, they are not insured, and most of the people in India, they are not eligible for pensions after retirement from their work. And that is why during 2015, some initiatives were taken by the government and some new schemes were announced. To be more specific, this announcement was on May 9, 2015, and this has been discussed in the economic survey, so schemes become important for this year's exam. Now, I cannot discuss all the details of these schemes, but I am just referring to the names and some couple of vital points about them. For example, the first scheme, that is PMSBY. Now, PMBSY, that is, it offers the, it is full form, Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, that is the full form, Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana. Now, what is the important feature of this? This is accidental death cum disability insurance scheme, and it is linked to the bank accounts, and the age limit here in this scheme is 18 to 70 years, and the premium is only ₹12 per annum per subscriber. So that is one scheme. And another scheme under this group that was announced is PMJJBY, PMJJBY, and this is Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana. Now, this scheme provides 1 year life cover, 1 year life cover of rupees 2 lakhs, that is the insurance cover, 2 lakh rupees. This is for the age group of 18 to 50 years, and another scheme that is called APY, that is called Atal Pension Yojana. That is obviously it is a pension scheme, and on contribution, the eligible person will get pension after retirement. Now, as far as the contribution of the government is concerned, the government will get the beneficiary will get the support from the government, and that will be 50% of total contribution. It means if somebody contributes money to the pension fund, the government will also contribute, but it is subject to maximum of rupees 1,000 per annum. So it is a little contribution from the government, but it will definitely promote the pension schemes, and obviously the people will be eligible to get pension after retirement. Now, another area that is to be covered in this part is external sector. Now, in the external sector, the first information is about India's integration to global economy. Integration to global economy. Now, this is reflected in terms of merchandise trade as a percentage of GDP. Means in our GDP, what is the share of our merchandise trade? That is an indicator of integration of any economy to the global GDP or to the global economy. Now, as far as the data about India is concerned, in 1991 to 92, 91-92 to in that year it was 13.9% of GDP. It means our total merchandise trade was equal to 13.9%. That was a small number, but then after reforms it started increasing, and 2004-05 it became 27% of GDP, and then by 2013-14 it was 41.0% of GDP, right? Now, for all these years, our share has increased, but due to global slowdown after that and negative growth rate of imports and exports, especially during the past couple of years, 2014-15, this has come down to 37.1% of GDP, and this is due to negative growth rates of imports and exports. So that is one information. Now, as far as the import and exports trend is concerned, during this financial year, means 2015-16, the whole year data is not available. It is only April to January. The export growth, it was minus 17.6%, and in volume terms it was $217.7 billion, means it was less as compared to the previous year. As far as import growth is concerned, it was also negative, minus 15.5%. Now, this negative growth in imports is largely due to decline in the price of crude oil, right? That is the largest contributor in this. Though the demand of crude increased in India, volume-wise it increased, but as there was decline in the crude oil prices, in the value terms, the growth rate was negative. Now, as far as the volume is concerned, sorry, it is not volume, rather write it as value, right? So, in value terms, it was $324.5 billion. So, obviously, as is the trend in India, imports are more, exports are less. So, as far as the trade deficit is concerned, trade deficit during the year has been $106.8 billion, that is 2015-16. But if we compare it with the last year's data, last year it was 119.6 billion, 2014-15. So here a statement can be created that during this year the trade deficit of the country has come down despite negative growth in exports. So that is true because with negative growth of exports there was also net negative growth in imports, and in value terms the trade deficit has decreased from 119.6 billion to 106.8 billion dollars. Now, another issue is the contribution of different items in our exports and imports. You can say sector-wise exports. So, which all sectors are largest contributors to our exports? Exports sector-wise. So, here I am giving you the rankings directly. So, first rank goes to POL. It has a share of, first is POL, it has a share of 18.3%. The second rank goes to gems and jewelry. Gems and jewelry with 13.3%. The third rank is textiles and other allied things. It has a share of 12%. Rank number 4 is chemicals, 10.2%, and fifth is agriculture and allied, and it has a share of 9.7%. Now, similarly, as far as imports are concerned, the rankings are, again, number 1 is POL. POL, you know, petroleum, oil and lubricant. So, POL, obviously, it is the largest import item, 30.9%. Number 2 is gems and jewelry, 13.9%, because we are importing a lot of raw material, gold, silver, stones, etc. So, it is an important item of import as well as export. Number 3 is chemicals, 8.6%. Number 4 is electronic items, 8.2%. And number 5 is machinery, that is 7.1%. So, this has been the structure of our import and export. So, this was important data as far as the trade is concerned. Now, one more thing you may note down here, that is about the current account balance. What has been the current account balance during this period? Current account balance. Now, last year, means 2014-15, it was minus 1.3% of GDP. So, there was a deficit, and that is a regular thing in India. The only issue is what is the quantum of the deficit. Now, 2015-16, it is expected to be around 1.4% of GDP. So, this is slightly up as compared to the previous year, but then that is not a cause of concern, because it is well below 2% and it is in safe range. Now, we can say that overall the external sector is quite comfortable, and in the beginning also I said that the macroeconomic indicators in India, they are performing well. Now, what were the important features of the external sector this year? If we have to summarize them, number one is lower trade deficit in value terms, that I already said. Number two, increase in FDI inflows, that has increased. I will give the data separately. Number three is NRI deposits continued to flow in. Number four, that is a negative feature, net outflow of portfolio investment. That is obviously because of global reasons, and more importantly, the change in US monetary policy, and that they call withdrawal of the monetary easing policy. So, that has some impact here. But overall, the capital account shows net inflow, and that means when this net inflow is absorbed by the RBI, there is definitely increase in forex reserves. So, now these has been the trends as far as our external sector is concerned. And as far as the increase in our reserves is concerned, last year increase in forex reserves, last year means 2014-15, the foreign exchange reserve increased by $61.4 billion. That was a big increase. But this year, because of net outflow of portfolio, 2015-16, the first half, H1 means first half, April to September, it is increase of 10.6 billion. But the good thing is that it is still in a positive zone. Now, as far as the availability of foreign exchange reserves. So, at the end of September 2015, the forex reserves were $350.3 billion. So $350 billion was our reserve at the end of September 2015. This data is released half yearly normally. So the March data is not yet available. Now, as far as the external debt position is concerned, means what is our liability towards the world as a country, that is called external debt. Now, the largest, this is total external debt is $483.2 billion. It means our external debt is more than our foreign exchange reserve. And if we compare it with the foreign exchange reserve, so we can say that our foreign exchange reserves, they are just 72.5% of external debt. So that is one thing. Number two, as far as the contributors to our external debt, means the sources, the largest source of money for India has been, so sources, ranking wise I am going to tell you, the largest source has been ECB or external commercial borrowing. That has contributed to 37.7% of the total. The second is NRI deposits. That contributes to 25.2% of the total. So 63% comes from these two sources only. The third is multilateral loan. That is 11%, and 4 is bilateral loan, and bilateral loan is 4.5%. So these are the contributors, and 80% of the money that came to India is through these sources. Now, another important indicator in external debt is always what is the share of short-term loan as compared to total loan. So another important fact for you is that the share of short-term debt in total debt is 17.8%. Now, short-term debt, if it is more, we consider it as a burden on the economy, because that you have to repay within the year, right? Now, other than this, as far as the inflation is concerned, though I have already mentioned it, I am going to give you some data here. 2015-16 April to December, for which the data is available, the WPI based inflation has been minus 3.0%, that is the average for the year. But as far as the CPI, we are now using CPI combined for consumer price indices. That has been 4.8% of the total percent. So that is very interesting that there is divergence between WPI and CPI, and that shows the trends at the wholesale price level there is larger impact of the global prices, and as the global prices are depressed, obviously the WPI data is showing, or WPI measured inflation is showing negative. But when it comes to consumer prices, all that decline in the global prices are not reflected at the retail price level, and so we have a positive inflation rate here, that is 4.8%, but that is well within the range that is prescribed as 2 to 6%, so it is below 5%, that is acceptable. And here I would like to remind you that the CPI combined that we are using here, CPI combined, its new base year that was revised last year itself is 2012, earlier it was 2010. And as far as the importance of this, now RBI monetary policy that is linked to headline inflation word that we use. So earlier it was WPI, but now the headline inflation by RBI is measured through CPI combined, or in other words you can say that now RBI monetary policy is anchored to CPI combined, anchored to CPI combined. So that was the price trend in India. So these were the important issues as far as the economic survey 2015-16 is concerned. So that's all about economic survey, and best of luck for your exams. Thank you.